From a federal inmate hoping for redemption through reality TV in 2023,
now that I'm down home, I feel very happy having been with him for years. Now I'm able to live with him. They'll come to my football games.
to a man sitting in jail facing decades behind bars just months after his release. This is how Keith Michael Collier's deserved downfall got way worse. Before we dive into Keith's recent disasters, let's look at how this all began. Keith was born around 1989 in Davenport, Iowa, and his criminal history started early. By age 17, he already had a juvenile burglary conviction on his record. Federal documents from his 2014 case described him as having a prolific criminal history, painting a picture of someone who couldn't stay out of trouble, even as a teenager.
They're making a little bit of process, but at the end of the day, we're gonna get done.
You guys don't know, but Maurice, he was going through a lot.
In 2014, at age 25, Keith was indicted as part of a Quad Cities drug ring. Federal prosecutors charged him with possession with intent to distribute more than 27 grams of crack cocaine and marijuana. Keith pleaded guilty and received a 14-year federal sentence plus 5 years of supervised release, which is essentially probation. He served about 10 years at facilities like FCI Pekin in Illinois, getting some time reduced for good behavior and compassionate release programs. While locked up, Keith participated in educational programs and connected with pen pals, which is how he met Leticia. On paper, it looked like he was using his time productively and preparing for a better life after release. That hope is what made his recent arrests so disappointing to anyone who believed in second chances. Keith's path to reality TV fame started in 2018 when he connected with Leticia Collier through a prison pen pal program. Leticia, a Davenport entrepreneur who ran Boss Tax and accounting services, began supporting Keith financially and emotionally. She sent him money, visited when possible, and advocated for his early release through the First Step Act.
This type of attire is not allowed in the federal prisons. They do not like see-through clothing. They actually want us to dress like nuns. But I do bend the rules occasionally so my man can see a little bit of nipples and cleavage.
Their relationship became the focus of Love During Lockup, which premiered in July 2023. The show documented their phone calls, Leticia's business ambitions, and her dedication to standing by her incarcerated partner. Viewers watched as Leticia spent thousands supporting Keith, including using $15,000 of his prison savings to buy herself a wedding ring, which caused tension between them. The couple married shortly after Keith's release in September 2024. Their wedding was featured on Love After Lockup, showing what seemed like a fresh start for a man who had spent a decade locked away.
Oh, I haven't sent you any statements or anything. So how do you,
Look, you ain't the only one that knows that I got an encounter, man.
On the show, Keith came across as quiet compared to Leticia's more outspoken personality. He seemed eager to please her and grateful for her support during his incarceration. The producers focused on their emotional reunion, their first intimate moments after years of separation, and Keith's adjustment to freedom. There were hints of trouble, like arguments about money, and Keith discovering Leticia had dated one of her employees. But overall, the narrative pushed redemption and new beginnings.
something from the sheriff's department.
Oh,
Yeah, so I don't know if it has something to do with Keith coming home.
there you go.
The fact that Keith can get out any day, I'm super nervous. There's a law that had passed, it's a retroactive law, and it affects my husband's charges.
Away from the cameras, Keith and Leticia tried to project success on social media. Keith created a Facebook page that gained over 4,800 followers, branding himself as a digital creator. He posted motivational content about fresh starts and overcoming adversity. The couple launched the Courtroom Hustle, a paralegal service supposedly helping other felons navigate the legal system, though critics immediately questioned the irony of two people with extensive criminal records offering legal advice. The reality behind the social media facade was far messier. Keith was released to a residential re-entry management center, essentially a halfway house, in Kansas City, Kansas, about 360 miles from Leticia's home in Davenport. This distance created logistical challenges for their relationship. He was also on strict federal probation through the Central District of Illinois, which meant regular check-ins, drug testing, and rules against associating with other felons or being around drugs. Leticia's business was collapsing during this period. Boss Tax and Accounting Services faced eviction from its Davenport office for over $30,000 in unpaid rent. The IRS filed a $31,000 tax lien against the business in January 2025. Leticia herself was arrested in April 2024 for felony theft, accused of pocketing over $8,000 from clients without paying their taxes. In August 2025, she was arrested again for felony forgery and identity theft after using a client's information to apply for housing. Despite these mounting problems, both Keith and Leticia continued posting inspirational content online. They talked about being boss entrepreneurs and overcoming obstacles. Reddit users and YouTube commenters mocked this disconnect between their stated goals and obvious dysfunction, calling them delusional for acting like success stories while facing multiple criminal charges. The first major blow to Keith's freedom came on November 6, 2025, barely 14 months after his release. Bettendorf police arrested him alongside Leticia on drug-related charges that destroyed any pretense of going straight. The arrest stemmed from a car accident investigation. The driver of a vehicle involved in the crash told police he had purchased synthetic marijuana, known as K2, from someone named Keith. Police traced this back to Keith Collier and discovered he'd been selling drugs using the phone that was monitored as part of his federal probation. Apparently, Keith thought it was a good idea to conduct drug deals on a device his probation officer could access at any time. Detectives set up a controlled buy at a McDonald's parking lot. Keith showed up and sold marijuana to an undercover source. When police arrested him, they found 57.94 grams of marijuana in his possession, packaged in individual bags ready for sale. He was actively dealing, not just possessing for personal use. Officers then searched Keith and Leticia's townhouse. They discovered more marijuana, including 18.88 grams found near Leticia's nightstand. This led to her arrest on a misdemeanor marijuana possession charge.
For Keith, the charges were far more serious. 2 felony counts of possession of a controlled substance, 1 count of possession with intent to deliver, and failure to affix a drug tax stamp. Keith's initial bonds totaled $25,000. He managed to bond out on November 8, 2025, after the amounts were reduced. Walking out of jail after just 2 days might have seemed like good luck, but it was actually the worst thing that could have happened. If Keith had stayed locked up, he wouldn't have been able to get arrested again 2 weeks later. The November 6th arrest was bad enough on its own. Keith was already on federal probation, meaning any new criminal charge could result in revocation. Federal probation violations can add up to the full remaining supervised release time on top of any new sentences. In Keith's case, he still had years left on his 5-year probation term, potentially meaning 4 or more years back in federal prison even before dealing with the state charges. But Keith somehow found a way to make everything exponentially worse. On November 20th, 2025, at 4:24 p.m., Bettendorf police arrested Keith again. This time, he faced 2 new felony counts of possession of a controlled substance, reportedly involving synthetic cannabinoids like K2. He was taken into custody at Scott County Jail, where he remains as of this writing. Let that timeline sink in. Keith was arrested on November 6th. He bonded out on November 8th. 14 days later, on November 20th, police arrested him again on new felony drug charges. 2 weeks. That's how long Keith managed to stay out of trouble after supposedly learning his lesson. This second arrest is what transformed Keith's situation from bad to catastrophic. The first arrest was serious enough to violate his federal probation. The second arrest, coming while he was out on bond for the first arrest and still on federal probation, creates a nightmare scenario of stacked penalties. Keith now faces multiple felony charges from 2 separate arrests. Each charge carries its own potential prison sentence. More importantly, his federal probation officer now has documentation of 2 distinct violations within the same month. Federal judges take a dim view of defendants who reoffend while on supervision, especially when the new crimes are the same type that led to the original conviction. Legal experts estimate Keith could be looking at decades behind bars when everything is calculated. The state felony charges from both arrests could result in consecutive sentences. The federal probation revocation could add years on top of that. And because he was arrested twice in such a short period, judges have little reason to believe he'd follow any terms of supervised release in the future.
Keith's bonds for the November 20th arrest were set at $10,000 and $50,000, totaling $60,000. Combined with the pending charges from November 6th, he's facing over $85,000 in total bonds. More significantly, he hasn't bonded out this time. As of November 21, 2025, Keith remains in custody at Scott County Jail, with no indication he'll be released before trial. The nature of the charges also matters. Keith isn't accused of simple possession for personal use. The November 6th arrest involved selling drugs to an undercover source and possessing marijuana packaged for distribution. The November 20th arrest involves synthetic cannabinoids, which carry enhanced penalties in many jurisdictions because of their dangerous and unpredictable effects. Keith demonstrated he was actively engaged in drug dealing, not just struggling with addiction. Leticia Collier's role in this disaster adds another layer of dysfunction. She was arrested alongside Keith on November 6th for marijuana possession, though she bonded out quickly on the misdemeanor charge. She hasn't publicly addressed Keith's second arrest, but her social media activity suggests ongoing loyalty despite the chaos. Throughout 2025, Leticia faced her own serious legal troubles. The April 2024 felony theft charge for allegedly stealing client tax payments remains pending, with a trial scheduled for January 26, 2026. Her August 2025 arrest for felony forgery and identity theft added more legal problems. She has over a dozen arrests since 2005, mostly for financial crimes, and has filed 7 bankruptcies. Despite all this, Leticia continued posting empowerment content on social media, branding herself as a stiletto-wearing felon entrepreneur. After Keith's first arrest, she posted supportive messages about standing by her husband. The cognitive dissonance between her online persona and reality became a running joke among Love After Lockup fans. What makes Leticia's involvement particularly troubling is the enabling dynamic. Both she and Keith are habitual offenders with extensive criminal histories. Rather than helping each other stay clean and law-abiding, they seem to pull each other back into criminal behavior. The fact that marijuana was found near her nightstand during the November 6th search suggests drugs were present in their shared home, creating an environment where Keith's probation violations were almost inevitable. In a December 2024 court filing, Leticia described herself as a single mother with limited family support. This raised questions about her relationship status with Keith, though no official separation or divorce has been confirmed. If they were having relationship problems before his arrests, Keith's current legal situation has likely destroyed any chance of reconciliation. Reddit threads on the Love After Lockup subreddit dissect every aspect of Keith and Leticia's dysfunction. Users point out the irony of their courtroom hustle business, offering legal advice to felons while they rack up new charges. Others note that Keith had every advantage: a supportive spouse, reality TV fame, and opportunities to start fresh, but threw it all away. Social media sentiment ranges from those who see Keith as a victim of systemic failures, reintegrating former inmates, to those who believe he deserves whatever punishment he gets for refusing to learn from his decade in federal prison. The fact that he returned to dealing drugs so quickly after release and couldn't even manage 2 weeks of freedom without getting arrested again makes it hard for anyone to defend him. One fan wrote, "At this point, I wonder if he's doing it on purpose because it's the only way to get away from Leticia." Another fan wrote, "Anything but get an honest job. This is the danger of living above your means. SMH. Scamming and selling drugs to appear successful. I feel for her daughters." Some fans of the show expressed disappointment rather than anger. They wanted to believe in Keith's redemption story and hoped reality TV exposure would motivate him to stay straight. His rapid relapse into criminal behavior confirmed the skeptics who never believed he'd changed during his incarceration. The financial pressure from Leticia's failing business may have contributed to Keith's decisions. With her tax company collapsing, facing evictions and lawsuits, and both of them needing money, returning to drug dealing might have seemed like a quick solution. But this thinking ignores that Keith was on federal probation, specifically prohibiting drug activity. and that getting caught would result in far worse financial consequences than whatever money problems they faced. Keith's use of his probation-monitored phone to conduct drug deals suggests either incredible stupidity or such desperation that he didn't care about the consequences. Either way, it shows someone unprepared for life after prison and unwilling to make the hard choices necessary to stay free. Keith Michael Collier's family situation adds another layer of tragedy to his repeated arrests and likely decades behind bars. The Love After Lockup star is a biological father to 3 children, including a son named Marie, who became a focal point on the show. During Keith's incarceration and after his September 2024 release, the family discussed plans for Marie to come live with Keith and Leticia in Davenport, Iowa. The show portrayed this as part of Keith's fresh start, showing him as a father eager to reunite with his son and build a stable home. Keith's other 2 biological children haven't been named or featured prominently in episodes or media coverage. Little public information exists about their ages, where they live, or their relationship with Keith. The show kept those details private, focusing instead on the broader narrative of Keith trying to be present for his kids after missing years of their lives during his 14-year federal sentence. Beyond his biological children, Keith stepped into a father figure role for Leticia's 2 daughters from previous relationships. Keith has been involved in their lives since Jakira was about 3, maintaining contact even while locked up through letters and phone calls that Leticia facilitated. Show storylines explored the complexities of blending their families. Episodes featured discussions about Keith potentially adopting Leticia's daughters and becoming their legal father. The narrative emphasized Keith's desire to create a united family unit, showing touching moments of him bonding with the girls and talking about his responsibilities as a stepfather. Now, with Keith facing decades more in prison after his November 2025 arrests, those dreams of family unity are shattered. His children, both biological and stepchildren, will grow up with their father figure behind bars once again. Marie won't be coming to live with Keith and Leticia. Naraya will become an adult while Keith is incarcerated. Jakira will spend her formative years without the stepfather who promised to be there for her. The cycle of absent fathers continues, another generation affected by Keith's inability to stay out of prison. As of now, Keith Michael Collier sits in Scott County Jail, facing a legal nightmare that will likely consume the rest of his life. The state felony charges from 2 separate November arrests could result in significant prison time. The federal probation violation hearing will almost certainly result in revocation and additional years behind bars. Legal observers estimate Keith could be facing 15 to 25 years total when all penalties are combined, depending on how judges sentence him and whether terms run consecutively or concurrently. At 36 years old, Keith might not see freedom again until he's in his 50s or 60s. He essentially threw away his 30s, and now his 40s and 50s, for drug dealing that lasted less than 2 months. Leticia's trial for felony theft is scheduled for late January 2026, with her other pending charges still working through the courts. Her continued reference to being a single mother suggests she may be distancing herself from Keith, though she hasn't publicly announced a breakup or divorce. Given that he'll likely be incarcerated for decades, their marriage is functionally over, regardless of legal status. Future episodes of Love After Lockup, or its spin-offs, may feature Keith's arrests and aftermath. The show often capitalizes on cast members' legal drama, and Keith's spectacular failure provides plenty of content. From a federal inmate hoping to rebuild his life in 2024, to a man facing decades more behind bars in 2025, Keith's story got way worse because he made it worse. Every choice that led to his current situation was his own. He used a monitored phone to sell drugs. He couldn't stay clean for 2 weeks after being given another chance. He violated the trust of everyone who believed in him. Now Keith sits in jail, his future measured in decades of incarceration instead of years of freedom. Leticia faces her own legal battles that could land her in prison. Their reality TV redemption story has become a cautionary tale about the consequences of refusing to change. For fans who wanted to believe in second chances, Keith's deserved downfall that got way worse shows that some people aren't ready to be saved, no matter how many opportunities they're given. Subscribe for more updates on your favorite Love After Lockup stars.